Hey Gooners, I'm Draco Self-Important, and I think you should listen to me. Today, you're going to listen to me talk about Ethan Klein and the infamous CPS call as someone who has had CPS called on them as a parent, and what I think about all of this, as well as what I think about other people's reactions to it. Yeah. If you are unaware, I am, as I think Ethan would say, a fallen fan of Ethan Klein. Uh, I can go into more detail about the fact that I think that he's gone completely off the deep end, but to give you a little background, if you are unaware, he's pretty big content creator, millions of subscribers, millionaire dude, lives in LA, YouTuber, podcaster, blah blah. Um, has I think 3 kids, 4. I don't know. I've lost track. I stopped watching a couple of years ago at this point, and so I've lost track of how many kids they've had because I know there has been at least one more since I stopped watching. But um, he was talking on one of the podcasts about his kid getting giardia, which is pretty common in what would you call that, gastrointestinal virus, right? Um, it's just like with most viruses, depending on the age and health status of the person, depends on how serious it is. When we're talking about like a literal, crawling on the ground baby, that's got the potential to be pretty serious. Um, and when he was talking about it on the podcast, he was suggesting that perhaps he and his wife had also contracted giardia, and that the source of this was from a newly adopted dog that came into the home with it. Which my horse that just ran across is an adopted dog. He definitely it came with some worms. So it's not unusual to get an adopted animal that you've got to nurse back into health in some form or fashion, and that can include viruses, parasites, what have you. Um, so like that in and of itself is not unusual. Having to housebreak a new dog, right? That's not unusual because in the same conversation he talked about the dog shitting all over the fucking house. Um, but you know, the the cast of the show, his production team, was like, okay, so how do we not get this? Because it sounds like your entire household has this and you're like pissing out your asses. How do we prevent this from happening in our lives? And he was like, well, you would basically have to eat our shit. Like, you basically have to get shit in your mouth. And the baby got it because he's crawling around on the floor, and we've got this dog that's sick, and the baby, they put everything in their mouth, and and like, but then that doesn't explain how the adults got it in that scenario, because as the adults in the house, if you're cleaning up dog shit, if you're cleaning up baby diapers, there's this cool shit called soap and water. Why wouldn't you guys be washing your hands, right? As it turns out, apparently, I don't think that the humans in the family had giardia at all. I think it literally was just the dog. I think the kid ended up at, like, I think the family ended up having something else, apparently, even if it was the fucking giardia, like, whatever. But, it's enough that a normal person hearing this story, hearing the entire family has come down with this virus, which is how Ethan Klein presented it to the millions of people watching, right? He presented it as the dog is shitting everywhere, the baby is crawling around, putting everything, including the dog's shit, in his mouth, and has gotten ill because of this. My wife has gotten ill because of that, and I have now gotten ill because of that. And it's like, okay, so then the chain of events is dog shits on floor, baby eats dog shit, wife does not clean up after cleaning up dog shit and or baby shit. and then you eat her ass and get it. Like, what is the chain of events here? That's what I want to know. No, that's just me being totally crass because I'm kind of an asshole. But um, genuinely, um, it is something that, like, when you hear this story and then the response is you basically have to eat shit to get it from the same person who has told this story of everyone in the house contracting this, you're like, well, how then, if it's so difficult to get, did you all, there's a disconnect. Um, and so someone calls CPS. There, I've heard that, I think he said it was an anonymous tip. I heard through the interwebs that you can't do an anonymous tip to CPS in California, which, like, I think that's bananas. I don't think that's actually, like, true, but I don't know the veracity of that. I think that they are far less likely to take seriously someone who is calling as a YouTube viewer, about a famous YouTuber. So I find it highly unlikely that, unless there really were like a ton of people who fucking called, that, or even in that case, if there were, that the calls coming from this YouTube shit, um, were the cause, unless someone from CPS watched the clip of Ethan saying all this shit, and I don't know how much of what he was saying in the moment was hyperbolic. He's known to be a bit of a hypochondriac, so it's like, and that comes back to the whole, apparently the humans in the house didn't have fucking Giardia anyway, so, you know, um, but it's been, so CPS shows up, they do their checks, like, everything's fine. It is what it is, it's not like in this case the children were in any danger whatsoever of being removed from the home. Like, just unequivocally, that's not what this was. That's it. CPS is not an organization that is designed to swoop in and remove children and put them in other places. Like, that's not what the system is there for. The system is there to protect, vulnerable children who don't have a voice to speak for themselves. And that's why, if there is even a hint of concern, someone goes and checks it out, because you have to have someone other than the child and potential abuser be involved in the process. Um, People online have treated this like it was a swatting. It's not, man. And I say this as someone who has had, I've massive mental health struggles. My executive dysfunction makes cleaning a task that is incredibly difficult for me, to the point that years ago, after, the pandemic and divorce and people in my life dying and finding out other people had had really traumatic things happen to them, kind of right under my nose, and like just a lot of traumatic shit happened. My little brain broke, and I got to the point that my house looked like a hoarder's level home, where I'm like sitting in trash piled up around me in my living room crying because I'm not able to make myself get up and pick shit up. And so in the process of this, one of the kids' schools calls CPS, and they're like, hello, can someone go? And CPS shows up, and I'm like, please help me. I do not want to live like this. This is fucking horrible. I hate this. Please help me. Please help me. And they did, right? And so, in a situation, where there's a potential that, like, there is a home with pets that are sick, whatever, and that may be causing harm to the children, CPS is going to step in and, like, offer vouchers for a vet, right? Assuming we're not talking about a millionaire. You know, in the case of we're talking about a millionaire, they're going to step in and be like, okay, are these people actually people who are engaged with and give a shit about their children, or are these people who think that they have enough money to not care and are not, paying attention, whatever. And this all came about as well right around the time that they had, like, fired a maid or something. So there was suspicion that the house was dirty because they weren't taking care of it because the hired help was no longer there to take care of it. And that was a whole part of this whole fucking drama. But, I just recently released a video talking about the Ryan Beard Bad Empanada feud. Because Bad Empanada has rode you know, the meme aspect of this CPS call, um, and the Giardia thing, like, as far as he fucking can, as far as just, adding to the fire of Ethan Klein's bullshit behavior. Um, and so in the argument with Ryan and Bad Empanada, Ryan Beard had said that their parents had had a cat when they were growing up that, like, no matter what they did, would shit all over the house, and that, like, that didn't warrant a visit from CPS. And it's like, here's the thing: maybe it did, maybe it didn't. If the cat's shitting all over the house and your parents are actively cleaning it up quickly and are responsive to this and are taking appropriate, you know what I'm saying, like, then yeah, that probably doesn't. But even if CPS is called, the CPS in every single state has a goal of a unified home. Like, that is the goal. Even if they do have to remove children from the home, the whole process is geared up and built to put kids back into the home. And, like, there are just not that many foster placements available, man. It's not like we have, like, huge orphanages available. It's not like, like, there's not a like baby rehousing factory. It's not like, like, this is just not. So the idea that having CPS come into the home when there is something that, like, objectively could be considered a concern if you're looking at it with the limited amount of information that you're provided. And all CPS is there to do is to show up and check. And so in the case of, Ryan Beard and their parents and the fucking cat, right? If CPS shows up and there's an issue with the cat, then CPS can get engaged in, well, how do we make sure that this is not providing a sanitation issue for your children, Because, like, having animal waste around the house can lead to a myriad concerns. Like the ammonia content involved in that, especially when we're talking about cats, that's risk for developing asthma and allergies, and, like, so it is concerning. It is something that, like, CPS being involved is not outside of the realm of possibilities. Do I think at any point that anyone should be calling CPS on YouTubers? Fucking no. I don't. I don't think that it is helpful. I don't think that it is useful. If this is a person who is on YouTube and putting their shit out there, people in their life also know what's happening, right? And, with very few exceptions, people are calling in their life, and the calls from the YouTube audience will sometimes discourage them from taking other calls seriously, because it seems, if you look at the case of Ruby Frankie, they got a bunch of fucking calls from strangers on the internet, but they also got calls from her kids, and none of it was actually responded to, right? You are more likely to have CPS do nothing when CPS is called than have CPS swoop in and take your kids. Like, taking your kids is the last fucking thing, because then they have to take care of your fucking kids. They have to then pay someone to take care of your kids. Whereas if you're taking care of your kids, you're responsible for paying for all of that shit. If they have to remove your kids from the home, they now have to pay to take care of your kids. They have to pay someone to do that. And so, like, they're paying a foster provider of some sort, whether that be a private foster care or whatever. So this is not the same as saying that there's an active shooter situation at someone's address, calling the cops, and putting them in a situation where they may literally die. Like, I know that, I watch a fuck ton of true crime. I know that the foster care system is an absolute, like, it's a shit show. The people who are willing to do that kind of work are not often people who are able to do that kind of work, because having the amount of empathy that is required to really be good at that sort of thing often leaves you with a lot of mental, uh, you know, this that doesn't allow you to be able to take on those things. And you end up with situations a lot of times where people do, take on more than they can chew, and it goes very badly. And, there are just people who, they take in the foster kids to get the check from the government, because the government does, in fact, have to pay someone to take care of those kids once they are removed. And blah, blah, blah. It's like, and I mean, I know of situations in my personal life where I have, friends, family, what have you, seen situations where, like, genuinely, like, the kid should have been removed, but it was like, well, is this really worse than foster care would be? Like, is it really that, like, is removal really that bad? This kid's pretty old at this point. Like, can we just ride it out? Kind of, like, so unequivocally, as someone who has experienced this, no, CPS is there. I am someone who hates the system as a whole, right? Like, by and large, I am not someone who is like, but CPS is, you know, like, one of the least scary, especially in the case of someone who's got an absolute boatload of money. If we're talking about someone who has, like, a drug issue, who has difficulty staying housed, for example, then CPS becomes a much scarier prospect, right? Then we're having a different conversation. But when we're talking about YouTubers who have a big enough audience that YouTube is their job, this is not going to be someone who is likely to fall into those systematic traps that are set up, to keep the class warfare going, right? It's a different situation. I realize I'm, like, staring at a light instead of looking at the camera, and I don't know why. Whatever. It is what it is. So, I don't know, man. I realized I planned to, like, put this in with my video, talking about the Ryan Beer Bad Empanada, whatever, because I talked about my thoughts about Ethan Klein in that. And, I mean, yeah, I'll say it again, man. I'm bummed out at this turn of events. I gave him a lot of credit for growing and learning as a human, and then to watch him just completely, you know, crumble. And it's like, I've thought about it, and as someone who, like, my last marriage, because I'm an idiot who's been married 3 fucking times, the last one, though, for sure, I did shit, as far as, like, parenting decisions, or, stepping back and allowing my ex-wife to parent, and my not saying, and, things at times. Like, I definitely did shit, for the sake of trying to maintain the relationship, in part because I was like, oh my God, like, this is my person. What am I going to do without her? Blah, 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 blah. Which in retrospect is complete fucking bullshit. And, like, I'm well fine without her. And, I have a wonderful partner that I love dearly, but I don't, like, need him in the way that I thought I needed her, because I don't need anyone in that way. Like, I need me in that way. Like, there's not, it was not a real partnership. It had just become a relationship of mutual manipulation. It was a shit show. And, I may get into a bit of a conversation about some recent interactions with the ex-wife that, but different talk. But I so I can understand the perspective of being the wife guy, who is, like, wanting to have your kids there every day, is, like, huge, and knowing that if the wife goes, at least to some degree, so then do the kids. And in the case of Ethan Klein, the kids go the fuck out of the country, most likely. So, like, I get that, like, that for him, I'm sure, is a huge part of this crash out because he cannot allow himself to consider this disagreement. Because I genuinely, I think that his little brain is exploding because he doesn't believe any of the shit that he's saying. He's just backing his wife to ride or die back his wife, and she's a fucking genocidal maniac, I guess. I don't fucking know. She seems like a pretty vindictive, pretty mean fucking human. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. Um, I have other, probably more important thoughts regarding recent news regarding, you know, actual acts of violence as opposed to phone calls to mostly benign organizations. Um, so, I wanted to touch base on this as someone who like has been there, done that. You know what I mean? And yeah, man, like it's not the same as swatting. But also calling CPS on YouTubers is not going to help. You're just going to bog down the system. Because if you're thinking about doing it and you know what I mean? Like, I guess if you really went a long time and consistently saw the same things and nothing, then maybe, but like if it's a one-off situation, like one fucking talk in a podcast like that, like one thing, because I think literally that was the only thing, I don't think that there were other things that people were pointing to, other than the like dog shit situation. And I mean, I ain't gonna lie, man. I have found a random cat turd in my house. Like, I have gone to clean out a closet and been like, oh, God, there's a petrified cat turd in the back because the cat crawls into the back of a closet that you haven't looked at in months and you don't realize it until you clean, and then you're like, how the fuck long has that been back there, right? Like, these are not things that, like, pet owners, you know, shit happens. Literal shit happens. But like having CPS show up and be like, hey bro, is everything chill? Like let's talk to the kids, let's make sure everything is chill. Like that's their job, man. Like we want that to be a thing that happens. Because if that isn't a thing that can easily happen, there are going to be kids that will die. Right? Like I don't think Ethan Klein's kids were in any risk of actual, they weren't in any danger, which is why a call from CPS is like it's like a rubber stamp, And if you don't make a big deal out of it for the kids, if you make it like hey, these guys are just here to make sure that everybody's okay. Apparently somebody said something because they were concerned about dog poop, so we're going to talk to them about the dog poop. Like if you make it a no big deal, this is a normal situation, the kids will be, it's a no big deal, it's a normal situation. That's how people get away with abuse, is because kids will tolerate anything if you make it not a big deal. And so if you as an adult recognize that it's not a big deal, because if you're not actually doing anything wrong and you don't actually have a home that's unsafe and you're not actually abusing your children, chances are pretty good shit's going to come out in the wash, right? Like, systematic oppression notwithstanding, I really don't think that there was a risk of there being, like an anti-Semitic removal of children here. So let's not even try to bring that to the table, because, Ethan and Hila at this point want to make everything about anti-Semitism, which it's just so fucking infuriating, man. It's just like, as someone who has had, not to be the I got a Jewish friend guy, right? But throughout my whole life, I have lived in areas where my tiny little podunk town when I grew up, there was Jewish family, right? But like when I moved to Pittsburgh, I spent a lot of my spare time in the Jewish neighborhood because the Jewish neighborhood, coincidentally, at least when I was living in Pittsburgh, was Squirrel Hill primarily, which was also the gay neighborhood. So it, you know, it was like gay bookstore next to the kosher deli. My favorite park was in that neighborhood, and so I would go walk through the park damn near daily in the summer. You know, like it was a population. Like when the synagogue shooting happened a few years back, I had already moved cross country, but like that was a synagogue I walked past constantly. And so like it was like holy shit, like those were my neighbors, you know. um my my fucking I'm a DSP. I'm a direct support professional. I take care of developmentally disabled adults. My favorite person that I support is a little old Jewish dude, and I like, you know, his religion does not come up a whole lot. Like it comes up at holidays and stuff. He's not a particularly religious guy, but like we had like some shakeups of people moving teams and moving house and blah blah blah, and I, you know, kind of fought to stay on the team to be able to take care of this gentleman because I adore this guy. Like, you know, he's, you know, kind of a weird father figure esque sort of a, I don't know, not really, but not like, it's an interesting dynamic we have. But you know, so it's like to be in these situations where anytime you are criticizing Israel or Ethan Klein or Ela Klein, I guess, or hurting their fifis, and having any of that shit immediately be it's anti-Semitic when like I know that I have, you know, fought like, I don't know, man. I just, you know, generally I've had really good experiences with Jewish people in my life. I don't know, man. Like, I've found that most Jewish people are, like, open-minded. Generally, you know, a lot of the people that I have interacted with tended to be better educated than me. You know, like, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I've gone off on a whole ass ramble, but when do I not? Hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully you've enjoyed the times that Ponyboy has walked in front of me. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that the CPS call was the anti-Semitic hate crime that a lot of the internet and also Ethan Klein is making it out to be? Um, do you think that it was someone actually in his life? Which I kind of do. I think that it's probably somebody who works with him that's like, bro, like, your mental health has been not great lately. You have been acting out very publicly, and now you're talking about basically like not taking care of your home in a way that's detrimental to your kids. Somebody should probably look into this. I mean, you know, again, not the job of the fucking YouTube viewers to be making these phone calls. Bogging down the system with this shit is not helpful. And the Ruby Frankie situation, and like what was, there was a fucking prank dad, and like there have been numerous cases of situations where a bunch of YouTubers did call the authorities, whether it be CPS or, you know, calling in welfare checks on people or whatever, and it just like they don't take it seriously. Because then when they show up and that person says, oh, it's all just an act, oh, it's all for YouTube, oh, it was a lie, it was hyperbole, it was whatever, then when they get called, you're setting potentially the children that are being abused up for failure. Like, it's not, if you in some place completely far away as one of, you know, any more than like 1,000 fucking viewers on a video are having a thought, someone else has already called, man. Don't fucking do it. Don't bog down. Like, just don't. If there is something happening in your actual life with human beings that you actually know, do not be afraid to call CPS. If there's a situation with your friends, with your family, with like, and you're like, this seems sketchy, this seems weird, call. If you see something, say something. Protecting kids is more important than like the comfortability of the adults that take care of the kids. It's just that simple, man. So, well, I'm gonna collect my horse and go home. Um, yeah, please comment below. I love you. Be safe. Make good choices.